You've been told that symbols are just decorations, artistic flourishes, cultural quirks, meaningless shapes humans invented to entertain themselves. But what if that was never true? What if the symbols scattered across your life, the ones that appear in dreams, the numbers that repeat, the shapes that follow you, the patterns you can't explain, were never random? What if they were messages? Not messages written in words, but clues and whispers of a forgotten language designed to help you remember who you really are. A language older than scripture, older than civilization, designed to transcend words and pierce straight into your subconscious. And here's the uncomfortable truth the mystics warned about. If symbols can awaken you, then there must be opposing forces committed to ensuring you never learn how to read them. For thousands of years, the Gnostics spoke of subtle forces, which they called Archons, that invert and distort the very symbols meant to guide you back to your inner light. According to them, the Archons have buried the true meaning of sacred symbolism beneath endless noise, making the profound appear trivial and the map of awakening look like nothing more than random patterns. In this video, you won't just discover the language behind the familiar symbols you see today. You'll uncover the ones that Gnostic teachings said were lost beneath layers of distraction. We'll also explore why these symbols existed long before alphabets, how they encode truths about your origin, and how understanding even a single one can shift not just your perception, but your entire outer reality. Because once you understand the real language of symbols, you'll start seeing the world as it truly is, not as it was designed to appear. Long before written language, before empires carved their stories into stone and rulers stamped their faces onto coins, human beings communicated through something older, deeper, and far more intelligent than spoken words. Across the ancient world, archaeologists uncover the same recurring symbols: spirals, hands, eyes, serpents, stars, appearing in cultures separated by vast distances, yet united by a shared symbolic intelligence. Not because the symbols were invented, but because they were remembered. To the ancient world, a symbol wasn't simply a drawing. It was a doorway, a point of contact between the seen and the unseen, a bridge between the material world and the realms of consciousness behind it. This is where the Gnostics offered one of their most misunderstood teachings, that the world is not made of literal things, but of signs, not words, but living archetypes. As the Gospel of Philip puts it, truth did not come into the world naked, but in types and images. To them, reality itself was symbolic. Matter wasn't the final truth, but a patterned reflection of higher realms. Everything you see, shapes, numbers, cycles, even the geometry of your own body, was a coded reminder of your origin in the pleroma. But over time, something shifted. As civilizations rose, so did structured systems of authority. Symbols that were once sacred maps of remembering were repurposed, guarded by priests, adopted by rulers, and gradually reshaped by institutions to fit their cultural narratives. Then came the age of literalism, when metaphor was taken as fact. The symbolic language that once guided the soul was reduced to superstition or dismissed as coincidence. And into that silence, new interpretations quietly took shape. To the archonic forces, symbols were dangerous, not just because they bypass the thinking mind, but because they remind the soul of what it has forgotten. So according to the Gnostics, the Archons didn't destroy symbols, they inverted them, twisting sacred reminders into their own opposites. The serpent, once a symbol of wisdom and cyclical renewal, became a villain. The eye, once the emblem of inner vision, became a symbol of fear. The flame, the dove, the tree, the star, what once pointed inward, was recast as something external and superstitious. But as humanity forgot its oldest language, a faint residue remained. Even now, people feel drawn to certain symbols without knowing why. They dream them, wear them, notice them repeating throughout their lives. The pull is instinctive, almost like a faint echo from the divine spark, remembering its own story. And here lies the paradox. The very symbols that the Gnostic teachings say the Archons tried to obscure are woven directly into your consciousness. You don't learn them, you remember them. And once you begin to see symbols not as shapes, but as messages, something profound awakens. The world shifts from random to intentional, from chaotic to meaningful, from confusing to encoded. This isn't just about reading reality. It's about remembering the power your soul has never forgotten. What if every symbol that has ever stirred something in you, a strange familiarity, a quiet recognition, a sense of déjà vu, wasn't new at all? What if you weren't learning symbols, but remembering them? The Gnostics believed the soul doesn't speak in words. It speaks in images, patterns, and archetypes, the language of the higher realms before incarnation. When you encounter a symbol with power, something in you whispers, "I know this," even if your conscious mind can't explain why. That's why symbols bypass logic, why a simple shape can trigger emotion or clarity, and why certain patterns feel alive, as though they're looking back at you. But in Gnostic mythology, the Archons understood this as well. They knew symbols don't just represent meaning, they activate it. A symbol is a switch, a key, and a memory trigger. And a human who remembers their origin steps beyond their influence. So they didn't erase the symbols, they did something far more subtle. They disconnected them from their meaning. Imagine being handed a map but never learning how to read it. The map remains, the symbols remain, but the person stays lost. That is how Gnostic texts describe the archonic influence at its core. Think of the spiral, one of the oldest symbols on Earth. To the ancients, it represented the journey inward, the unfolding of consciousness, the path back to source. Every mystic tradition used it, and every ancient culture carved it. It resonated everywhere long before cultures ever crossed paths. Today, it survives as nothing more than an aesthetic motif, a faint echo of a symbol that once pointed humanity home. Or the circle with a dot at its center, once a symbol of divine emanation, the very point where consciousness enters matter, now reduced to nothing more than a design element. Or the eye, once the symbol of inner vision and the soul's ability to perceive the unseen, now dismissed as something sinister. In Gnostic writings, the Archons didn't hide or destroy symbols. Instead, they emptied them. They inverted them, turning sacred reminders into decorations of distraction and spiritual tools into visual noise severed from their true meaning. The human mind may have forgotten, but the soul hasn't, because symbols don't just carry meaning, they restore ancient memory. Think about why certain geometric shapes, triangles, mandalas, hexagons, can hold your attention effortlessly. Why sacred geometry feels familiar even if you've never studied it. Why some symbols seem to vibrate, pulse, or glow with an energy you can't explain. It's because every symbol operates on two levels. The first is the shape your eyes see, the outer pattern. The second is the quiet stirring that rises inside you, the inner awakening, the sense that something ancient is moving just beneath the surface of your awareness. In Gnostic mythology, the Archons can distort outer meaning, but they cannot touch that inner activation. This is why symbols have survived every empire, every religion, every attempt to rewrite knowledge. Symbols are not decorations or intellectual artifacts. They are memory conduits, embedded into your consciousness before you entered this world. And here is where it gets more profound. You were never meant to analyze symbols. You were meant to feel them. You aren't meant to decode them with logic. You're meant to let them awaken what logic has forgotten. The ancient teachers understood this. They preserved their symbolic wisdom in stories, diagrams, and metaphors, just like Jesus did. because true power of a symbol lies not in what it tells you, but in what it unlocks within you. So the real question becomes, if symbols are keys and your soul is the lock, then what exactly are they meant to open? What memory are they trying to restore? What truth about your identity becomes impossible to deny when you finally learn how to see? The answers to those questions don't just decode symbols, they reveal the blueprint of your true power. And that's where the real revelation begins. To truly understand what the Archons are trying to hide from you, you must grasp the one truth they can't erase. Symbols don't teach you something new. They help you remember something ancient and timeless. The Gnostics believed there were certain symbols so powerful, so revealing. The Archons worked tirelessly in distorting them, not because the symbols were rare, but because they revealed who you are beneath the illusion. The first group are the symbols of origin, reminders of where you came from. Throughout ancient texts, the same images appear again and again. The circle, the lotus, the womb, the light in the darkness. These weren't symbols of physical birth. They pointed to your true beginning, the moment the divine spark entered the realm of form and matter. To the Gnostics, these symbols weren't abstract ideas. They were memory triggers. They whispered, "You came from the realm of fullness. You are not from here. You only fell asleep." This is why origin symbols can stir emotion even in people who claim not to be spiritual. The mandala, the golden halo in ancient art, the radiant circle behind sages, the glow that artists paint in the center of the chest. These images bypass belief and logic. They speak directly to the part of you that already knows. A human being who knows where they came from cannot be affected by the archonic forces mimicking creation. So the Archons didn't erase these symbols. They obscured them, trivialized them, and drained them of their sacred meaning. The second group are the symbols of Ascent, the path back to your true nature. Every culture had a version of this. The ladder, the mountain, the upward triangle, the tree reaching toward the heavens, the rising sun, even the serpent ascending the spine. These symbols appeared everywhere because they described the same truth. Your consciousness has the ability to rise beyond the world of forgetfulness. And whenever a symbol of Ascent appeared, distortion followed. The serpent, which once symbolized transformation and awakening, was later cast as a deceiver. The tree of divine knowledge became forbidden. The mountain of revelation became inaccessible to ordinary people, and the rising sun became interpreted through institutional symbolism. Because the Archons understand something most people never realize. Once you remember the path upward, you stop looking outward. And the moment you turn inward, their influence begins to dissolve. This is the core teaching of Gnosticism. Yet Ascent symbols still surround you, in art, architecture, sacred geometry, even in the daily cycles of nature. Meaning can be distorted, but the soul still recognizes the way home. The third group are the symbols of identity, the most dangerous of all. The eye, the flame, the star, the inner sun, the radiant human silhouette. These images were never decorative. They represent you, not your personality or ego, but the indestructible core of consciousness the Gnostics called the divine spark. The eye doesn't represent watching or control, it represents sight, the inner vision that perceives truth directly. The flame doesn't warn of danger, it speaks of the unquenchable light within you. The star doesn't point to astrology, it points to your origin beyond the material heavens. These symbols were created to remind you, you are not a seeker of light, you are light remembering itself. This is why the texts portray the Archons as fearing these symbols, not because of the symbols themselves, but because of what happens when a human being recognizes themselves in them. The moment identity shifts from "I am small" to "I am luminous," every layer of illusion loses its hold. Symbols were meant to awaken this remembering, to reveal the architecture of your consciousness, to activate the inner knowing that can't be taught with words. So the Archons inverted their meanings, turned them into meaningless decorations and misunderstanding, making their deeper message invisible. So how do you work with these symbols in a way that restores what they once carried? The answer to that question doesn't just empower you. It may uncover the part of you the Archons feared you would one day remember. Now that you understand the power behind these symbols, the question becomes, how do you actually use them? How do you let them awaken the memory they were designed to unlock? First, you must understand that symbols don't work through effort. They work through resonance. You don't force them to reveal meaning. You allow them to speak in the language they were always meant to speak in: intuition, imagery, feeling. This isn't about memorizing definitions. It's about learning to feel reality again. The simplest beginning is to notice what pulls you. Throughout your day, symbols appear everywhere: circles, eyes, spirals, triangles, stars, trees, and repeating numbers. Instead of ignoring them, pause. Not to interpret, but to recognize. Ask, why did this symbol catch my attention right now? Not what it means, but why it appeared at this moment. A symbol that arrives without effort is never random. It's a message tuned to your current awareness, even when it comes as repeating numbers. The Archons are described as using distraction to make symbols seem invisible. But once you begin noticing, the world shifts and coincidence becomes communication. The next step is to let a symbol choose you. Don't look up meanings or search for explanations. Pay attention to the one image that lingers: the eye, the spiral, the triangle, the star. Sit with it briefly. Let it rest in your awareness like a pebble settling into still water. Notice what stirs inside you: an emotion, a memory, a sensation. This is the soul speaking. Symbols reveal themselves through feeling long before understanding meaning can be manipulated, but resonance cannot, which is why the Archons tried to weaken symbols of power, because resonance is beyond their reach. You'll also notice that the symbol you're drawn to is the one already active within your consciousness. If the eye pulls you, inner vision is awakening. If the spiral appears, you're entering an inner unfolding. If the upward triangle keeps showing up, you're realigning with your higher nature. Instead of asking, "What does this mean?" ask, "What part of me is responding to this?" That single question opens doors the Archons spent centuries trying to close. Symbols reveal themselves in stillness. Once a day, gently hold a symbol in your mind, not as a picture, but as a presence. Let it rest there like a candle flame in a dark room. Notice what rises: an image, a memory, a whisper of insight. This is how symbols activate deeper layers of consciousness, not through force, but through familiarity. The more often you sit with a symbol, the more it speaks, and the more you remember. The final practice is to let the world become a symbolic mirror. Assume nothing you notice is random, not the symbols you dream, not the ones that repeat, not the ones appearing at strange moments. Treat them as reflections of your inner state. A symbol appearing in your day is a whisper. Pay attention. Something is shifting. This isn't superstition, it's perception. You begin to see through the surface of life into the subtle architecture beneath it. And this is where your true power awakens, not by escaping the world, but by reading it, not by fighting illusion, but by understanding its language, not by seeking meaning, but by remembering it. Once you learn to see symbolically, the world that once seemed chaotic becomes coherent, guided, alive, a living text written in a language you always knew and only had to remember. That is the beginning of Gnosis. And if this resonates and you want to go deeper, my free ebook, Escaping the Illusion, a Gnostic guide to mastering reality, expands on these teachings with practical methods for inner awakening. You can download it for free. The link is in the description. Symbols were never meant to be secrets. They were meant to be reminders. Reminders of your origin, your path, your identity, your power. But over time, their meanings were trivialized or simply drowned in a world trained to keep you looking outward. And that's the irony. The Archons didn't hide the symbols. They simply represent the forgetfulness that keeps you from seeing yourself in them. Because the moment you remember that symbols aren't decorations, that they're mirrors, something shifts. You stop seeing the world as random. You stop seeing yourself as small. You stop believing the lie that meaning exists only out there. Instead, you begin to feel the deeper truth. Reality is layered with signs, and they speak to you because they were meant for you. The Gnostics didn't teach belief, they taught perception. They taught that the divine spark within you already knows the symbolic language. It only needed to be awakened, recognized, remembered. From this moment forward, every symbol you encounter, in dreams, in art, in numbers, in nature, and in the quiet moments most people overlook, becomes an invitation, not to decode, but to awaken, not to analyze, but to recognize, not to escape the world, but to read it as it was always meant to be read. And if this exploration helped you see the truth behind these symbols, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the Gnostic Eye. Each week, we uncover new fragments of insight scattered through the illusion. Remember, you don't find truth, you remember it. And the moment you recognize yourself in the symbols around you, the illusion begins to fall away.